I want what they're having. Never mind. So before I get into this review, I implore you to check this film out for yourself. It's on Shudder, which I recommend to any horror fan, only because I have some thoughts on the film and I'm not sure how it'll come out, and I will likely spoil the film. So, yeah, please check this one out. Anyways, welcome all and welcome in to my channel. My name is Freddy, and today I will be discussing MadS, a 2024 French horror film directed by David Moreau, this being the first film that I have seen from the French filmmaker. The movie follows Romain, a teenager who, after taking this new drug off of his dealer, faces the most horrific experience of his life, involving an injured woman mutilating herself in his passenger seat. So yeah, talk about a shitty trip sitter. I'm sorry. She also attacks him at some point, leaving him covered in her blood. And from then on, our dude is not only deeply traumatized from the events that just happened, but also is having the worst trip of his life. This makes the narrative become a surreal fuckfest, with the film leading you on different ways to perceive what's really happening. He begins to act erratically throughout, and it's hard to discern whether this is him just having this bad trip or almost becoming this zombie-like figure. So for the people who didn't listen and didn't go watch the movie, I'll give my overall thoughts on the film before diving into the nitty-gritty. First, I love the direction of this film. Single take, no breaks, 88 minutes. Mwah. Very inebriated in how it's portrayed as well, not only in the camera movement, but with the lighting and also the audio mixing is very well done. The raw nature of the cinematography, one that I've noticed and have just read other people point out that is very common with new French horror films, overall benefits the narrative and really sets an excellent tone for this film. Secondly, the performances of our three leads. Milton Rich, who played Romain, Lucille, I don't want to butcher it, so it's up on the screen, who played Julia, and then Laurie Pavi as Anna. They all gave great performances in their respective roles. They all gave different elements of being scared, also scary in their own right, so really applause all around. I also gotta give further props to David Moreau. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that either, but scream. He also wrote the story to this film, which I think it's just very clever in how it reveals the info to us, and it escalates to a point where we almost have to question the true severity of their situations. Like, there's ways that you can convince yourself one way or another that the characters that we follow are falsely perceiving the events throughout, or if we are truly seeing the true nature of what's happening to our characters. The music and sound design are a highlight as well. Nathaniel Screen is credited as the composer of this film, so huge props for him. He also did the fucking Taken trilogy, so take that as you will. All in all, this film is truly a surreal and very exciting experience. I went into it watching it with my girlfriend. We've kind of been on a little bit of a zombie kick, so this is one that I read the description, was kind of really into the idea of the plot, so finally got around to watching it, and hell, I watched it twice this past week, so it's definitely worth the viewing. I've seen where people say that the film drags at points. I personally feel that the horror elements that are seen throughout, specifically the transformations across the different characters that we'll see based on whatever happens to them, or perhaps the substances that they take, but it makes this really clever blend of both psychological and body horror sequences. Sequences that I'll speak about further in the discussion portion. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Ratings are arbitrary, purely based on vibes, so just check it out. Stick around for the board portion to see where I put it there. What is the board portion? Well, I guess you're gonna have to wait and find out, aren't you? Alright, I've warned you. Discussion time. So, like I said, I first watched this with my girlfriend, and we were immediately kind of into the fact and had picked up on the fact that, oh, this film is trying to sway us one way or another, and or both at the same time. And once the conclusion happens, it's pretty clear, like I can say, now that I've seen it twice, it is pretty clear that the film, like if we're trying to say what is like truth, it's that there is a zombie or whatever apocalypse, something is afoot in reality outside of them. But as the days went on and as this movie further stuck with me, I started to almost convince myself that I was wrong and that it was the other way around. The ways that I was able to convince myself of this is because certain elements with the audio mixing, just the auditory horror elements as a whole, are super effective. So those elements were super effective and kind of opened up this reality that whatever the hell is happening to them can alter their own perception, whether it's the drug or their own contact. The way I was trying to convince myself is like, if none of it really happened, then the woman at the beginning couldn't have existed, or maybe she could have, but his own brain, his own fucking like fried brain, is manipulating it to an element where it develops and increases in severity in his own head, right? So if that is the case, where could that be obvious? And the one portion was where he initially goes in and sees that she's no longer in the car, like after she's already fucking hereditaried herself damn near. And he had phone calls with his dad saying like, hey, our alarm's going off, someone's in the house, you're not in the house, we have an intruder. And now we learn that that could very easily have been manipulated in some way. Another reason where I started to like convince myself that it could all have been in their heads is just the actions of this arbitrary military group that we see throughout. We'll fucking get on them in just a moment. But now that I've seen it the second time, I do think that there is a beautiful combination of both, and I think that the most fun way to watch this movie is if you try to convince yourself one way or another, like, or both, like try to play with what the film is telling you, try to see how it could go either way. But like, I think it's pretty clear that there is something afoot, but like, man, these military people are insane. So they come in with their fucking assault rifles and gun up any building that one of these infected people are in and leaves no survivors. But then, like, there's moments where, like, you think one of them sees them through a window and then they escape and no one is going after her really. And there's a lot of questionable things happening. And then the climax happens. So we have Julia, now the third person that we've seen in this film, become infected with whatever the hell, who both came in contact with blood of someone who was presumably effective and also took the drug at the beginning that Romaine took. And all three of them also had this. I don't know why I'm over explaining, just watch the movie. But anyways, we're with her, it's at the end, and she's with one of these like military people or whatever. There's an attack by Anna, the second person that we followed, who has gone completely violent, fucking like eating people, like total frenzy. They end up killing her, but the lady takes off her helmet and like reveals herself to Julia and tells her, hey, like, everything's gonna be okay, are you infected? Like, it's okay, I can help you. Meanwhile, she's covered in blood, and it's Anna's blood, by the way. This girl doesn't know that, clearly, but the question is, why are we so gung-ho whenever we enter just a fucking bar in this city looking for someone infected, literally shooting up the entire, like, it looks like Terrifier 2 in that bitch. But in one person that very clearly could be infected and came in contact with a bloodborne disease, there's blood all over her, questionable blood, it just lets her go. So, like, it's stuff like that makes me want to play one way or another, and maybe that's the point. It doesn't, like, really, like, diminish the film's quality in any way. It's just, I like how it messes with my brain in that way. I do think that there are real events that happen that are then just amplified exponentially due to the fact that they're all also tripping out. So, yeah. Favorite sequences, the entire opening act where we followed Romaine was very believable in like the most in how you would question it, I would say. A little bit into honest portion as well. And when you can it's more so towards the end when things get like really really big where you're like, okay, there's like no way this can't like actually be happening. The initial actress, I don't have her name right now, but once I find it, I will put it up. I should have been prepared. But she plays the initial woman that mutilates herself that kind of kicks off all this. Her performance was very, very good. Really just liked the overall horror and how it was portrayed to us. It's very impressive given that it's all in one take. And yeah, so let's get to the board. Hello, welcome to the board. So the board is, as you can see, just a self-made tier list that I'm going to use to keep track of every single piece of media that I discuss in some capacity on this channel. So MadS being the first film that we will, through the upload schedule, this will be the first thing I have up. So I'm thinking that we go with a very solid A tier. I will say I am kind of cheating because there are several films I'm going to catch up with on the latest podcast episodes, so stick around with that. There's going to be a ton of like first viewings that I'm not going to make a full review about, that I want to at least get some sort of thoughts out there on the internet. And those, along with every other piece of media, will be added to this over the course of this year, and then by the end of it we can see how it all lines up. But because I have several already in the chamber and in the back of my head, I kind of know how this is going to compete with what's coming up, so I'm thinking A tier's where it'll sit for now. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this. I'm very excited to see how this video comes out. Up to this point, I've really liked the flow that I've given myself to get this out there. Hopefully this can allow me to develop some sort of rhythm with all this. If you like this, you can always like it, share it with a friend, loved one, hate one, persecuted one, I don't care. And subscribe if you're interested in more of this type of content. As of now, all that's available is the welcome video, which kind of goes over what to expect in the future from this channel. But anyways, that's all for me. I'm Freddy Eats Media, and I'm still considering it.
Je sais pas, gros, c'est pas moi qui cuisine. So when you just like live that every